Hi, welcome to Through the Eyes of a Therapist YouTube channel. I'm Cristal Martinez Acosta, licensed professional counselor in the state of Texas. I'm also a board-approved supervisor. If you want to catch my podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Podbean is where I host my podcast. So anywhere that you find podcasts, I'm basically there. I also have a private practice called Clarity Counseling, Consultation, and Wellness, where I offer trauma therapy to individuals 13 and up. And right now, all of our services are virtual. So just wanted to put that out there. Thank you for being here with me. I'm very nervous to start this YouTube channel, but it had to be done. There are certain things that I want to show you that I cannot visually explain or show you on my podcast. I know that YouTube is really useful to show you longer form content. And so I'm hoping that with this channel, I can do that and I can accomplish that goal. So today, I want to go over how to use a dollar store board game in a therapy session. So for those of you who are therapists, come along with me, stick with me through a hopefully short and comprehensive, concise explanation on how to find your Dollar Tree Candyland and make it into a board game that you can play with kids that will teach them about emotional vocabulary, emotional regulation, relaxation, social skills, affective modulation, and taking turns, things of that nature. So let's get started. What you're gonna need are a couple of supplies. You're gonna need some colors, pen, pencil, paper, markers, whatever. Then you're also gonna need your dollar store or Dollar Tree Candyland. If you have Candyland, like the actual version, great. So you're gonna take that out. And so, there's a hair. What you're going to do is, I already did a little bit of setup on this before just because I wanted to inspect the product. But I really like this Dollar Tree version because, first of all, I mean, $1.25, come on, right? That's great. So for those of us on lower budgets, for those of us who maybe work for nonprofit organizations and we have to kind of stretch our dollars, or if you want to ever send a client home with this type of game to play with their family and write some instructions down to have them do this with their parents. It's not like you're lending them your actual real Candyland or the one that you had ever since you were little that you took to the office, you know, that has sentimental value. This was $1.25. You can even instruct them to buy their own at the Dollar Tree. So yeah, it's pretty great. I found it in the toy section. Anyways, enough about that. I love thrifting and I love bargain shopping, so I'm not going to be quiet about that. So anyway, you take it out of the box and there's very little setup, right? It has all of the colored cards, which is how you will set up just any Candyland game, right? It has all the colors that are on the game board. So let's go ahead and maybe speed this part up. We have our little people. So instead of having like little plastic stand-up gingerbread people, you have little chips and you put a little sticker on it, and that's what keeps you on the board. It keeps track for you. And so what I'm imagining is that you're a counselor, clinician, therapist, and you have the child in front of you, the kid in front of you. You could even be playing with the child and the caregiver together in a setting, depending on how old the child is. And you can be going over these skills, modeling them for the parent, modeling your own regulation skills for the parent, right, while you're doing this in a session. So anyways, after you get over the setup and you put all the stickers on the board, it comes with stickers, it comes with your instructions. You're keeping track of what colors are on the card and what colors are on the game board. if you want an easier way to set this up, I am providing a link to a Canva that I created with instructions on how to do this whole setup and how to make Candyland therapeutic. And so in that instruction set, I also included some printouts for you to follow along with that have all of the colors listed and everything that you're going to need in this video. I made mine by hand for today just to show you what I did. So after you set up the board game and you have your two pieces, let's say the client is yellow and you, the therapist, are red. You're ready to start. You've shuffled all your little cards. You're ready to start the actual board game. What you want to set up on the side is kind of like the prompts for the actual game, and this is what makes it sort of therapeutic. So versus just playing Candyland, and yeah, sure, playing Candyland on its own does have some therapeutic benefit, but I feel like when you play a board game on its own, I feel a little bit like it's kind of like cheating, like, hey, like, let's just play a board game, you know, and there's no extra real effort placed on behalf of the therapist or anything. But these worksheets kind of provide that extra therapeutic effort, which is pretty cool. I've made a square here on this sheet of paper for every that corresponds with every color on the board game. So we have purple, red, yellow, blue, green, orange, and pink. So we have all of those colors on the board. So at any given time, if a card is drawn by either you or the client, your card could match up with any of these colors, right, that you've created on the side. And for this setup, like, I set it up by myself on the side beforehand. So if you have prep time before your client, a lot of times, I remember when I worked with a lot of kids, like back to back to back, I didn't have that time to prep beforehand. So what you could do, this is just an idea, you could set this part up with the child as well. Or if you want to get the printouts from the Canva link that I'm going to provide below, you can also color in this part, like these little squares, with the child. Like, hey, let's color in some squares while I set up the game, or while we talk and check in for the beginning of the session. How was your week? You know, how was everything at school and whatever, right? Like, you're asking questions, but you're also having them color, so they're not just sitting there and you're writing and coloring and trying to prepare for your session at the same time. So some of it is like multitasking. So after you've colored in all of your squares, what you want to do is create a prompt for every single square. Now, this part is going to depend on a few things. It's going to depend on the age of the child, their development, what you're working on in session, right? So for example, if I want to improve a client's emotional vocabulary, for example, what I want to do is maybe list out some words that are not just the basic happy, sad, mad, right? Because what I think we want to help a child do is not, when we focus on that intervention, we don't want a child to just express everything through tears and tantrums and aggression, right? So that's what we're targeting. So we want to expand that emotional vocabulary and verbal vocabulary so that when they are feeling a different kind of emotion, they're able to verbally express it, they're also able to facially express it, and they're also able to understand how it feels in their body, right? So it's not just always aggression when they're actually feeling guilty or disappointed or confused, right? So that's how the intervention ties to the purpose, the therapeutic purpose, and maybe the treatment plan, right? So for example, you have here, for purple, we have confusion. For red, we have disappointment. For yellow, we have sadness, which is, I get it, that's kind of like the cop-out one, right? Like, sadness is basic, but you could put like depression or despondent or whatever, right? Detached or something like that. Again, it also depends on the age of the kid. You don't want to use like really, really large vocabulary words for somebody who's maybe like 3 or 4, right? You want to use kind of like age appropriate, but also thinking of their cognitive age, not just their chronological age. Therapists have to think about a lot of things. Then there's also blue for frustration, green, guilty, orange, bored, and then pink. There's a lot less pink spaces on the board. So those, if anybody lands on those I reserve for like more in-depth conversation. So instead of them landing on, let's say, a regular color that occurs more often on the board, and them telling me about a time maybe they felt confused or disappointed, I want them to tell me a little bit more about, here I put good choices. So when was a time that you made a good choice versus a bad choice? So I'm helping them engage their decision-making skills, their social skills, and I want them to kind of talk to me a little bit more with that storytelling, being able to do some processing, right? And so this is just kind of how it works. You pull a card, the client pulls a card, you go back and forth, you take turns. Every time each of you pulls a card, you match it up with the corresponding color. Anytime that you pull a purple card, for example, on this prompt, I will talk about a time that I felt confused. Then a client will pull the next card, and then when they pull their card, let's say it's yellow, they move to their little yellow space on the board, right? You just move along just like regular Candyland. And then, sadness. They talk about a time that they felt sad or depressed or despondent or whatever the vocabulary word is that you want them to increase. I have an example of another set of prompts. So if you wanted to, let's say, work on social skills, developing friendships, not being socially awkward, combating social anxiety, social phobia, these prompts are different. So for red, I have ways to compliment a person. For purple, how to say hi or to greet somebody. For yellow, how to ask for help. For blue, how to introduce yourself to someone. For green, anytime somebody pulls a green little card here, you say, tell me about a time. No, not tell me about a time, but, well, it could be. You could say, tell me about a time that you asked somebody to play with you or become your friend. Or give me an example of how you can ask someone to be your friend or play with you. If they pull an orange card, ways to say no. Tell me about a time you've said no or set a boundary. And then for pink, again, since there are less of those on the board, it's a little bit longer. So tell me something about yourself that you like or that you're good at. So this is increasing their self-esteem. And this is kind of like the social skills prompt. So again, if you like these prompts and you like the setup and you want to hear the instructions again, you can always replay this video. But also, I have some instructions in the link below. If you want to hear more about what interventions and different board games and different supplies I have and things that I have to say about my experience in the field, please subscribe. And thanks for watching Through the Eyes of a Therapist channel. I hope to see you again soon. Click the like button. My name is Cristal Martinez Acosta. Bye.